Hey, how's it going? How's everybody doing? This is going to be another Tales from the Kitchen video. It is just a video about when I used to work at McDonald's. Guys, thank you. Stop fighting. Jeez. 15 seconds into the video and you're already at it. Anyway, anyway. So, let's start again. This is going to be another Tales from the Kitchen video. It's about when I used to work at McDonald's years and years ago. I worked there from when I was between the age of 14 and 16. Way back in the little era we used to call the late 80s. It was actually 1980. When did I start working there? If I was 14, that would have been 1987. Yeah, 1987 to 1989. Yeah, because I was 14. It was from 14 to 16. Uh, yeah, so it was very young. I think I was the youngest person on staff at that particular store. But anyway, yeah, it was a shit show and a lot of shenanigans because it was downtown Mississauga area, and it was a kind of a sketchy little bit of an area. It was the McDonald's at Central Parkway Mall. I don't know what it's like there now. As far as I know, there's still a McDonald's there, but and this is actually my name tag that that I had back then. I still have it. I kind of just remembered just before I was about to do the video. I was like, do I still have that? And it just clicked where it was. I had it in just a little box full of memories and stuff from the past. So, and you can see it's got the old school label maker used there. It had the little dial and click, click, dial, click. So, yeah. But anyway, fun times. So, I was actually going to start this off with a song, and then I totally forgot about it. But I will get into that song right now. And it's going to sound silly and it's going to sound bad coming from me, but it's also not really a good song. But it was from the McDonald's commercial that came out back then where they listed off every menu item. A lot of those menu items don't exist anymore. But, uh, but yeah, but it went like this. It was Big Mac McDLT, a quarter pounder with cheese, filet of fish, a hamburger, a cheeseburger, McChicken and McNuggets, tasty golden fries, regular or larger size of salad, chef or garden, or a chicken salad oriental. And for dessert, hot apple pie, sundaes, 3 varieties, soft serve cone, 3 kinds of shakes, and chocolate chip cookies. And I didn't learn the breakfast part because I didn't work breakfast there. I only worked lunch, and also I knew a long time ago. I just forgot, but the fact I still know that much of the song is actually pretty impressive, if you ask me. But like I said, a lot of those items aren't even on the menu anymore. So you listen to the song, what the hell is a McDLT? Well, I'll tell you what a McDLT was. It was a Whopper, essentially, except what they did to make it different is they served it the hot part hot and the cold part cold. And when we worked there, the funny thing was what people used to do until they caught on is we would get like two like Big Macs and or 2 quarter pounders with cheese or whatever, and we'd put one on the hot side and one on the cold side. Oh, I'm getting a McDLT, and then we'd walk off with it. Because back then your meals were free. I don't know what it is now, probably half price or some bullshit like that. But yeah, what could you get? You can get like a fries or a side, which was fries essentially, a sandwich, a dessert, and a drink. You can have that like that as your meal if you worked like a certain amount of hours. So it was pretty good, and I ate way too much of that crap back then. But anyway, yeah. So I got a little list of things here about when I worked at McDonald's, and like I said, this store was a shit show back in the day, and it was a lot of fun working there. And bear in mind, I was also a kid, so there is one story on here that it's a little bit disgusting, but also kind of funny at the same time. That'll probably be one of the last things I talk about in this video. But the McDonald's in around where I worked, there was a lot of there was gangs around, like gang activity. Saga did have. I can't speak for it now because I don't live there. My mom lives there, but not in that area. But there's a lot of gang activity in this area. There's like some, I'm going to say Latino gangs for lack of a better term, because I'm not entirely sure what their gangs were. The younger kids, they called themselves the Central Parkway Posse, which I always thought was a funny name because it was at Central Parkway Mall in the Central Parkway area of Mississauga. But they were all kids and they weren't really violent or tough. They were just shit disturbers. But their older brothers were the ones that would come in, and they were like I said, I was about 14, 15, 16 in around there. These guys were, you know, 18, 19, early 20s, and they would come in and they would cause shit. I remember one time there was a fight and they threw a guy right through the window of the McDonald's. So what they would do when they would start up, they'd show up causing trouble. They'd take all the staff and put us down in the basement, they would lock the doors, call the cops, and the cops were there all the time. Eventually we had cops staying in the store, like, you know, at night as security, right? They were just hired to be there and they would just sort of walk around and chat with us and stuff. Probably bored out of their minds. But they would lock us in this giant cage. I don't know how big it was in hindsight, but it was a big cage where all the food was. They'd lock it up at night. So they'd put us in there for our own protection. So what we would do, we just fart around and take all the boxes. We'd make forts out of them. We'd be throwing things at each other. You know, we were climbing up on top of the big industrial freezer that they had there, and we made a fort up top, and these other guys made a fort on the other side, and we were just throwing like whatever garbage we could find and just throwing it at each other. And then these two guys, I remember one guy's name was Darren, the other guy, I think his name was Lyndon or something. Something like that. And they found these big giant Ronald McDonald heads. You know, Ronald McDonald is not part of McDonald's anymore, which is sad because they sucked all the fun out of it just to make it more just generic corporate bullshit now. But anyway, they had these giant Ronald McDonald heads and they were putting them on. And these things were probably about 2 feet tall. And they're like, we'll scare them away with this. And this big wobbly head. It was the funniest thing ever. And eventually they just threw those in the garbage because people just kept going down there to play with them, like put them on and scare each other, and they were just, okay, enough of this. So they ruined the fun about that. But yeah, it was big Ronald McDonald heads. Back then the coffee stirrers were legit little, like they're about this long. I compare it to my face, I guess, about the width of my face. And they were plastic spoons that said McDonald's on them. They're neat looking spoons, but they're legit straight up Coke spoons. Like people were taking them and that's what they were using them for. They'd cut them in half. And even some of the staff that were doing Coke, you'd find them in the bathrooms, you'd find them all over the place, or even in the customer washrooms. You know what people were doing with them. Obviously you weren't using them for heroin or anything like that. Number one, it wasn't big enough. And number two, more importantly, it was made out of plastic. So it's not really going to work when you're trying to melt something with a lighter under a plastic spoon. So anyway, skipping ahead. What's on the other side first? I remember my friend Cor, when he got me the job there originally, and one time we were working the counter, and this guy comes up. I don't know what country he's from. I remember he had dark skin. Obviously his English wasn't very good, so he orders his food. We understood all that part, and then he goes. I remember Corwin asked, "Is this for here to go?" And the guy goes, "Bloop," and he's like, "Pardon me? Would you like it for here to go?" Bloop. We're just like looking at each other. So Corwin just puts a tray, and I put the food in the bag and put it on the tray. That's like, I think now most of the places just do it all to go anyway, but you put it on the tray and just hand him the bag on the tray and said, "There you go. I don't know what to do with this guy." But anyway, so John, I remember there was this big giant Ronald McDonald balloon up top one time, and the wind's blowing and it's like creeping over, doing all this creepy stuff, and kids were looking at it and crying. They were traumatized. This big scary clown just kind of hovering over this thing was massive. This thing probably had to be about 15 feet tall. Like it was on top of the building, and it took up the whole top front area of the restaurant. It's just rocking back and forth. Kids were terrified. It was the funniest thing. The things that now you would just be able to record on your phone, that back then you just have to go by memory. But it's something I really wish I could have had a video of. It was just hilarious watching these kids, like, just the parents are walking towards them, the kids are like looking up and they're Nope, nope, not today. I can live without McDonald's. But anyway, what else here? Oh, they were doing a Muppet Babies promotion now. If you're not if you're younger than Gen X, you probably might not. You probably won't know what Muppet Babies are. But if you still probably know what the Muppets are. Muppets are. But the Muppet Babies were a cartoon, a Saturday morning cartoon based on the Muppets. Only they were children. They were babies, and they went on all kinds of adventures and things like Imagination Land adventures type thing. And interesting, Barbara Billingsley, the mother from Leave It to Beaver, was actually, they had a nanny that you only saw her from like the knees down. She wore stripes, green and white striped socks, if I remember. And Barbara Billingsley actually voiced the nanny. And if you don't know that, you wouldn't think of it, but as soon as you hear it, and you know who Barbara Billingsley is, June Cleaver, um, you never unhear it again. You recognize her voice right away. But anyway, so we had this promotion going on, and this woman coming in, and she wanted Fozzie, and all we had was Miss Piggy left, and she goes, well, I already have this is like an '80s Karen essentially, and she's yelling and screaming. She took the Miss Piggy she bought and she threw. She goes, I don't want this. I've already got it. And this. She goes, I want Fozzie. And she's banging her hands on the counter, demanding that we pull a Fozzie bear out of one of her asses. We were all out. That was when we were sold out. And she's having a temper tantrum because she couldn't get this. It was a total Karen like meltdown moment. It was funny as hell. And then this one kid, I can't remember his name, but he's in the back yelling and jumping up and down and screaming. And going, Fuzzy, Fuzzy, Fuzzy. And the woman's getting mad. And the manager that was working, it was this guy, John. And John was an awesome manager. When I first met him, I hated him. But as I got to know him a little bit, I realized this guy's actually really funny. He's a joker. And he's laughing, but he's talking to the woman with a straight face, but trying not to, like, you can just see it in his face. Like he's just ready to first of all, tell her to go herself and shut the up because there's nothing we can do about it. And all he did was suggest trying to find another location, call ahead, maybe see if they have any left or whatever. But just a total meltdown over because she couldn't get her little teddy bear, you know. But I don't remember how that played out. She probably just ended up having to leave. What else here? There was a guy that worked there that's he was in love with one of the girls that worked there, and some guy came up to the counter and started mouthing off to the girl, and this guy, I can't remember his name, it was a weird name, that like Rui or something, I don't know, it was a name I'd never heard before or since then, but he was a small guy, but he was like kind of buff, and he was all into martial arts and things, and he literally ran he worked in the back in the kitchen area, and he comes running out, literally jumps over the counter like a superhero, and just mid-air just comes up and just punches this guy right in the nose, like right in the mouth, and blood's running down his face, and people had to run over and pull him off. He never got fired for it. Like, you know, a lot of things happen, as you'll find out in this list, that people didn't get fired for. But anyway, just wailed on this guy. And, you know, the usual, you ever say that again, and that sort of thing. A little bit of an interesting story there. There was a manager who got fired for whatever reason. This is when I first started. I didn't know this guy. And he literally stood up on the table, pulled his dick out, and stood on the table and started spinning in a circle, pissing like a water sprinkler all over the place. Fuck this place. And I think he got charged, obviously, for disgustingness. I don't know what the charge would be, what they would call it, but anyway, he water sprinkled the whole place. There was another guy that I got fired too. What he did was, he was one of the earlier night cleaners before, I think this might happen just before I started, but apparently he was cleaning the milkshake machines back when they were still called milkshakes, not just shakes, because I think they actually use dairy in them now it's just whatever chemicals, products, edible plastics, mercury, I don't know, whatever goes in them now. But anyway, he cleaned out, peed in it, dumped it out and just put it back in, and got found out about it disgustingly a few days later. So that means from that time to when he found out people were actually drinking the product that was made in the container that he pissed in, which is really, really disgusting. Even more disgusting than the thing I'm going to be telling about what I did in a minute or so in this video. I said gang stuff, Coke spoons, blah, blah, blah. The uniforms back then were hideous. They were ugly. When you talk about, if you know the Bare Naked Ladies song, or if you know the group Bare Naked Ladies, Canadian group, very famous group, they have a song called, I think it's called I'm in Love with the McDonald's Girl, and he says something about a polyester uniform. And back then, I don't know what the uniforms are made of now, but back then they were made out of polyester. They were this ugly burgundy color, like really, really ugly. You had to wear black dress shoes, these straight-legged, the pants were this ugly gray color, and the pants weren't polyester. The manager's uniforms were polyester, and they were ridiculously ugly. They were just, I don't know who designed them and why they thought it was a good aesthetically pleasing choice. They were the ugliest polyester blue things. They were just awful. And but the pants, we had these gray straight leg, cheap looking dress pant things, this ugly burgundy belt that with a McDonald's looking, it was like the golden arches was like, it wasn't a clasp, but the belt went into it and you just pulled it tight, and really, really cheaply made. Polyester clip-on tie. It was either a clip-on one or one that went around the neck, but like you just clipped it on the side. That was polyester. A short sleeve button-down shirt that was burgundy pinstriped, and then the hat, you'd either got, when I started, it was a visor, and it was this ugly burgundy visor that just had the golden arches on the front of it. Or before I was there, it was like a flat top hat. It was a nicer looking hat, and it was burgundy, and I think it had stripes going around the side and golden arches on the front or something. Really ugly uniform. My dad actually persuaded me. It was my friend Corbin that got me the job because he said that he knew me or something. I don't remember that, but it was actually my dad that sent me to McDonald's when I was 14 to get the job. And he said, put on something nice. So I didn't really have any dress clothes. I had these ugly silvery, they were in stylish sort of at the time, shiny silver looking dress pants. They're ugliest fucking things ever. And a white button down shirt. This is to go apply at McDonald's. Okay. So I'm walking down the street in public in this. Now I was kind of a rocker at the time. Normally I'm wearing like tight jeans, concert shirt. My hair wasn't long anymore at the time. I'd cut all my longish hair off that I had previously to that, and ball cap and that sort of thing. Young rocker, Chuck Taylors and stuff. But here I am in these ugly dress shoes, these ugly dress pants, and a button-down white shirt, and people are laughing at me, and I'm just trying to get to this McDonald's, which was probably about a 15-minute walk away. And I get there, and now here's where my young sexism might have come to play. So I'm standing there, and this young woman comes over in her blue uniform, her ever so pretty blue uniform. But anyway, and I remember she was still managing when I worked there. She's actually, if I remember, she's actually a really good looking young woman. But so I come over, I was standing there, and she goes, "Oh, can I help you?" And I said, "Oh, can I see a manager, please?" And she looks at me, she goes, "I'm a manager." And in my head, I remember thinking, a lady manager? I was just like, oh, I didn't know that was a thing. Because, all the TV shows I grew up with, it was all very misogynistic, right? Like, it was the men were the managers and the women were the secretaries and that sort of thing. So, but I just go, oh, okay. I was wondering if I can get an application. So I filled it out, handed it back, and then I got the call the next day. And then my dad makes me go in to the interview, also dressed in these ugly clothes, and there was a couple other people getting interviewed, and they're just in jeans, like around the same age as me. I'm just like, why am I wearing these ugly fucking clothes? These guys wearing jeans. Why did he make me dress up like an idiot? But needless to say, obviously I got the job, and so did the other guys that were there because I remember working with them for a short time. Um, let's see what else. There was we'd have staff functions all the time. So there was this one staff function we went to. I think it's called. I don't know what the full park's called, but I know that it was also known as Miniature Village, just outside Toronto, and it had like miniature versions like of things like buildings and landmarks. That's the word I'm trying to say, of different landmarks and things like that. But they had like a go-kart track and they also had one of those haunted houses where you walk in and everything's black, you can't see anything, you just follow, you look for the little dot, and then someone comes out and scares you or chases you. There's this one manager, I can't remember his name, but he comes out, or he's in there, and the guy comes out and scares him. Apparently he scared him, he just reacted and punched the guy in the face. I don't know if the guy got hurt, the person got seriously hurt or anything, but it was just a reaction. And I think there were some charges laid or something after that, but just, you know, or I don't know what the end game of that was, but anyway, but I do remember that happening. We had another staff party. Now this is when I was 16 and I was wearing Docs and stuff, and I had yellow laces in them. Now, just a little brief history of Doc Martens and laces. Different colored laces meant different things. If you had red laces, it was usually because you were a neo-Nazi. And white laces, you were a white supremacist. I wore yellow laces. Now, yellow laces can mean one of two things, or to a certain degree, maybe both. Essentially, it means either you don't like cops, or it also meant you're an anarchist. So I had the yellow laces in more for anarchy. I was a young little punk. But anyway, so I'm walking out, and these kids from another store came over. It was this tall white guy and like a black guy. And they were both bigger than me. And it was at the community center near my house. And as I'm walking out of the bathroom, they come walking in. They pushed me against the wall. And they said, what's with the white laces? I'm like, they're yellow laces. And clearly they knew they were yellow laces. They were just trying to be bullies and, you know. So anyway, they go take out the laces and all this. So I took out the laces and I just gave them to the guy. And then he gave them to, I gave them to the white guy, he gave them to the black guy, and the black guy just throws them at me. He goes, I don't want these fucking things. And I'm just like, they're yellow. Like after, and there was a bit of back and forth. So I'm like, they're yellow, they're white, they're yellow, they're white. You know, it's like, they're yellow, you're just assholes. Now, I just left. I was just like, fuck this, because I only live like 5 minutes away. It was right near where my house was. In reality, I could have just went to their manager and said, those guys just threatened me and made me do this and that and humiliated me, and they would have lost their jobs right away. But I didn't. I just left. But anyway, a couple more stories. I got fired by this manager, Mike. He kind of looked like Mike Brady with a porn stash and big Jeffrey Dahmer glasses. So I got fired by him. One day he told me I could not wear Doc Marten boots anymore while I work. So no big deal. So I'm wearing shoes. So I start wearing Doc Marten shoes, and he comes up to me and goes, what did I tell you about wearing the boots? And I pull the pant leg up, and I go, they're shoes. And he's like, oh, okay. And he guess he felt a little stupid. Then one day I forgot my shoes, and I put on the boots. And he wasn't really working that day. He came in, but he did come in right when I was leaving, right when I was changing. Someone changed for him. He goes, what did I tell you about wearing those boots? And I apologized. And I said, yeah, sorry. I forgot my shoes. I thought they were in my bag or whatever excuse. And then he starts yelling at me. And I go, well, you know, I'm probably not going to be here much longer anyway, because I've been there 2 years at this point, and it's McDonald's. So I essentially just got fired right after that. Now, one other funny story that didn't happen at the McDonald's I was working at, and then I'll get to the gross story, the finale story. So, me and my friend, his name was Chris, we went to McDonald's and somewhere in Mississauga, I can't remember where, but we went there and we got really treated like garbage by some Richie Cunningham, Ralph Malph looking fucker, you know. red hair looking guy. Nothing against red hair, but that's just that's what he looked like. He was really rude to us. So we took our food and we left, and we went to a phone booth before cell phones. Obviously, we went to a phone booth, looked up the address, called the McDonald's. This was a little while late, maybe about 20 minutes later, half an hour later. Now Chris was British, like background. When you talked to him, he had a hint of an accent, but he could really put the accent on when he wanted to. So he calls up the McDonald's. We called up, and he said, "We're we're a rugby team, and we're just passing through, and we want to pre-order some food." So they're like, "Okay, yeah, go ahead." So what he did in this thick accent, he says, "Okay, what we'll do, we'll get just split it down the middle. We'll get 25 orders, the Big Mac combo, whatever it was, fries, pop, whatever, and 50 orders. We'll do it quarter pounder with cheese, or 25 orders. It was 50 burgers altogether." They're like, "Okay, wow," and they're probably real excited. The kitchen's probably getting all pissed off, and everyone's like, "Okay, scramble, scramble, scramble. Let's get this order together, pack it all up." So we said, "Oh, we'll be there in about a half an hour, about 20 minutes. Oh, we're just getting off the highway. We'll be there in about 20 minutes." Okay, no big deal. So a little bit of time goes by. So then we call back, we call the McDonald's, and we said we want to complain about the red hair, the kid with the red hair that was working there. And they're like, "There's no kid with there's nobody with red hair working here." I go, "Yeah, he was working the counter. He was really rude to us." I was like, "You got the wrong McDonald's." And then they said, "Are you sure you weren't talking?" It was the same street, but a couple miles apart. "Are you sure you weren't talking about this address McDonald's?" So we just kind of looked at each other like, "Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. No problem." We're like, "Fuck." So we drove, we were in the car. We drove all the way to the other McDonald's, the one that we didn't eat at. And we look and we pull in the parking lot, and it's closed now. It wasn't 24 hours at the time. And there's stacks and stacks of bags and pop. And we look at it, we kind of started laughing, but they couldn't see us, right? We could see them. The manager sitting in the window like this, and they're like probably thinking, "I am so fucked. I hope so nobody lost their job because of that, because what they should have done really is taken a credit card number and and done it the proper way. They just took it for granted that it was a legitimate order. I mean, it was 50 burgers, 50, like that's a lot of money, a lot of food, a lot of waste. And that's the only thing that really bothers me is I don't like wasting food. So it was a lot of stuff that hopefully a lot of the staff just here, help yourself, take some. And the rest of it probably went into the trash, which is unfortunate, but in hindsight, it's still a little bit funny. So the gross story. So we were feuding, and I was only 14 when this happened. Just bear in mind, I was only 14 when this happened. I was still a kid. I would never even consider doing this now, but I don't mind telling the story because it's gross and it's funny. So we were feuding with the night closers. They were fucking with our stuff and going in our lockers. Things were going missing. So we got mad. And we told, and nothing came of it. So I got mad, and I went into the staff washroom and took a crap, like legitimately took a shit on the floor. And then I kind of snuck out, and then somebody went in there after me and opened the door and left this big smear all over the floor. It was pretty disgusting. Sorry, guns. It was pretty disgusting. Only 14, but it was pretty disgusting. And so they're like, "Ew, gross," but I never admitted to doing it. But they knew it was me, like the people working, because there's only 3 of us left in the store at that time. We were closed and we were leaving, right? So the next day I come in through the staff entrance, and this guy, I remember his name was Mike, really nice guy. He looks at me like he's yelling across the kitchen, "Why are you here? Why are you here?" I'm like, "I work today." He goes, "No, you're fired. Why are you here? You're fired." And I'm just like, "What are you talking about?" And I didn't forget about what happened the night before, but I was too young to really understand that that's a fireable thing. So I walk down the stairs and I go into the staff area, and the manager there, the general manager at this time, her name was Gwen. Really nice person. I remember she was one of out of all the years I remember from way back then, even, she was one of the nicest people I'd ever worked for or worked with anyway. So she comes in, she calls me into the office. She goes, "Can you sit down for a minute?" And I already knew why I was in there, but I didn't think I was going to get fired because I was young and naive, and I didn't think, stupid thing to do. But 14, I was 14. So anyway, she sits me down, and you can tell there's anger, but also she sees the humor in it at the same time. So she goes, "Sorry, I have to let you go because of this." And she pulled out the, the the form that says I'm fired, and it says in big letters, "Relieved himself on the floor." And I go, "I didn't do that." And they're like, "Well, everyone says it was you, and there's only three of you here." And I go, "It wasn't me." And then she's like, "But why would everybody say?" I go, "I don't know, but I didn't do it. I didn't even know about it. Like I pretended like I just played completely dumb." And she goes, "But everyone, kind of going with the everyone." And I go, "But you can't. There's no proof." And which was actually a pretty smart thing to say at 14 instead of going, "Okay, yeah, I did it. I guess I'm fired." But and that would also be an interesting thing to go home and tell my dad. "Yeah, I got fired today. Before I took a shit on the floor," you know. But anyway, um, so I said, "But there's no proof, like, you know." And she kind of looks at me, and she cracked a bit of a smile, and she goes, "Okay," ripped it up, threw it in the garbage, and said, "Okay, go get changed." And I just went on with my shift, and it was never brought up again. And the night cleaners, things they got new night cleaners out. I don't know if they got fired or put them in another store, but there was new night cleaners after that. So some good did come out of me pooping on the floor. And yes, sorry, Gwen, if you see this video, which you own, you're very unlikely you're even still alive, or probably very, very old at this time, because you're pretty. I think you were my age then, my age now then. So that would make you like 100, maybe. No, I don't know how old. In the 80s? No, more than that. Probably about 100. But anyway, that being said, if you watch this all the way, if you want to like, subscribe, if you have any tales from the kitchen of your own, maybe you worked at McDonald's, you got some stories, funny little anecdotes of your own. So the cats are about to start fighting, as they always do. But if you have any stories of your own from McDonald's or Burger Thing or Wendy's, Jack in the Box, wherever you may have worked, or just from visiting and observing, yeah, definitely drop them in the comments below, and tell me your comments of this video. Should I have pooped on the floor, or should I have not? Probably shouldn't have, but in hindsight, it still makes for a funny story, and I definitely don't regret doing it because, well, it's kind of gross but funny at the same time. Anyway, if you want to like, subscribe, like I already said, all that stuff, that would be much appreciated. Help me get up to 1,000 subscribers, and da-da-da-da-da. Until the next one, bye.